In one of the episodes of my favorite television series, The West Wing, the characters develop a hand signal that they use to privately communicate with each other, an open palm facing down and swooping up, like an airplane taking flight. The script describes the movement as the wavy sign, but the characters call it simply the signal. The signal gesture is an example of the nonverbal code of kinesics, or the study of body movement, which is what we will delve into on this video. Kinesics focuses on all types of body movement, such as facial expressions, gestures, posture, and eye movement. However, scholars have considered the study of eye movement to be so important that it warrants its own category called oculesics. While we won't cover oculesics much in this video, it's important that you know that this code is really a subset of the larger code of kinesics. Credit for labeling this code of kinesics goes to anthropologist Ray Birdwhistell, who applied it to movement of individual body parts, or the body as a whole. First, a caveat. This is a deeper look, not a comprehensive discussion of this area of study in nonverbal communication that you can find with a few well-placed clicks on your keyboard. Okay, let's get started with a quick reminder of the challenges of using nonverbals to communicate. While they are applicable to all nonverbal codes, these challenges become obvious when we look at kinesics, and we'll use the West Wing signal as our example. Remember that nonverbal messages are often ambiguous and can be easily misinterpreted. An open palm moving up, like the signal in the West Wing episode, could mean a variety of things. In fact, the meaning of the signal changes from the beginning of the day, when it refers to an Air Force pilot's safe departure, to the end of the day, when it means more generally that something good has happened. Second, nonverbal messages are also bound by culture. What means one thing in one culture may have a different meaning in another. In this case, the signal has a particular meaning for those knowledgeable of the culture of the West Wing series, while to those with no exposure to that culture, the gesture means nothing or possibly something very different. Nonverbal messages are also continuous, as you can definitely see in kinesics. Movement implies some continuity of motion. If you catch a gesture or facial expression in mid-movement, your chances of an accurate interpretation are much lower. Without seeing the movement of the hand rising in the signal, you wouldn't have any idea how to interpret it. And we also learn the meaning of nonverbal messages. In this episode, the meaning of the signal gesture is explicitly stated, but we often learn the meaning of nonverbals through context. Other scholars, most notably Paul Ekman and Wallace Friesen, were instrumental in the study of kinesics. Ekman may be a familiar name to some of you if you watched the 2009 television show Lie to Me. The show followed an idiosyncratic deception detection expert who analyzed facial expressions and other body movement, a premise based upon Paul Ekman and his research on microexpressions, which are involuntary facial expressions that happen so quickly that you may not consciously register them. Ekman and Friesen classified kinesics into 5 categories: emblems, illustrators, affective displays, regulators, and adapters. Let's focus on the first 2 for the moment, as these are easily confused. Think of emblems as a nonverbal way we can replace a verbal message, words, while illustrators nonverbally add to or augment verbal messages. If someone asks a child how old she is and she responds by holding up 5 fingers, you know she's telling you she is 5 years old without the need for words. The gesture replaces or substitutes for the verbal message. An interesting historical example from 1968 involves the USS Pueblo. Long story short, the crew, captured by the North Koreans, sent nonverbal messages to the United States in the form of gestures in photos. They made sure to prominently display the finger to communicate that they were not enjoying their captivity, as the North Koreans were claiming in their propaganda. The crew took advantage of both the use of emblems to substitute for a verbal message and the characteristic that nonverbal communication is culturally bound. Illustrators, on the other hand, do not replace the verbal message. They create a visual image to add to, embellish, or support the verbal message. As such, they're often used subconsciously. Think about when you're talking to someone on the phone. They can't see you, but you're probably still gesturing. Illustrators are also used to, well, illustrate the point. If you were to ask my friend Shelby to describe how tall her service dog is if he were to stand on two legs, she would use her hand to illustrate. We also use kinesics, usually facial expressions, to communicate specific emotions, again, often unconsciously. This category of kinesics is called affective displays because they show how something affects you emotionally. When you are frightened or amused, you show it in your face, eyes, gestures, and posture. Another category is regulators. These are the movements you make that influence the flow of a conversation. For example, you nod your head to indicate that you are following what the speaker has said, lift your eyebrows to indicate skepticism and that you might want to interrupt with your opinion, make direct eye contact to show that you want to ask a question. The final category of kinesics, adapters, is focused on how we use body movement to adapt to our environment. You may fan your face if you are warm, shift weight if you are nervous, rub your nose if you have a cold. Think about what you do when you sit down. You have to adjust your body to sit in the chair and move around to get to where you want to be. Oftentimes, you're unaware that you are doing this, but other people may notice and interpret what it means. So, back to the West Wing signal. You can clearly see that it is an example of communication via body movement, in this case, a gesture. You can also see that it is an emblem. The gesture communicates the message without the necessity of an accompanying verbal message. The meaning comes from its continuity of movement, is learned, and as we can tell from the responses of the various characters in the show, can be ambiguous. And the meaning of the gesture is culturally bound. While West Wing fans may know the meaning, others may not. Let me end with a final example that exists outside the West Wing episode. In the 2017 Tony Awards, when his name was announced as a nominee for Best Lead Actor in a Musical, Lin-Manuel Miranda non-verbally communicated not only that he was a fan of the West Wing, but that he felt something good had happened or was going to happen. He gave the signal. Only West Wing fans like me, and now you, know what it meant.